Hi, I'm Carl Thompson and I'm a StorageCraft Master Engineer. In this quick tutorial, I'm going to show you how easy it is to migrate from a legacy backup product over to the ShadowProtect recovery solution. Let's take a quick look at some of the key things to consider. It doesn't have to be a rip and replace migration, as generally other products can still reside in the environment. The main thing is you want to avoid conflict. We don't want two applications using VSS at the same time. So SPX will back up frequently throughout the day, by default from 8 AM till 6 PM every hour. You may increase this window so the backups are happening before people come to work and then once they're finished at the end of the day, and you may want to increase the frequency. And then your legacy product may continue to back up over the evening. Next thing will be to look at phasing out and removing your legacy products when you're ready. The key thing here is we want to reduce that overhead of management. Finally, for more complex environments, we want to leverage the expertise of your service provider or StorageCraft to help facilitate a seamless migration. So let's take a look at what's involved in deploying the ShadowProtect solution. Firstly, we need to install and configure Shadow Control. This is the centralized monitoring and management appliance that's going to facilitate an easy deployment. Secondly, we'll then deploy ShadowProtect SPX, which is the backup and disaster recovery software that needs to be installed across your physical and virtual environments. Finally, we need to install and configure Image Manager, which is going to sit on your backup server and perform verification, consolidation, and retention across all of those backups, as well as advanced features such as offsite replication. Firstly, what does Shadow Control look like? Well, we have a Shadow Control appliance. This is intended for large sites. Anything over 10 machines, particularly when you're talking tens or hundreds of machines, we need to centralize the management of this. For smaller sites, you may find your MSP has a hosted appliance that they can monitor and manage for you. First step would be to download the Shadow Control Appliance Builder from the StorageCraft website. You're going to boot a physical or virtual machine from the ISO and it will install the appliance. The other key step there would be to configure an SPX backup policy. This is what's going to schedule the backups across your environment. The next step is to deploy ShadowProtect. So again, for smaller sites, you might just choose to do a manual install and configure this on each of the physical or virtual machines. For larger sites, you want to leverage the push install from Shadow Control. So you can import a CSV, or we have plugins for System Center or vCenter, or otherwise you could leverage Active Directory GPO or a script-based deployment. The final step is to install and configure Image Manager. So Image Manager is going to sit on a Windows machine on your site, and for small sites this could be a manual install, or you could leverage the push install from Shadow Control. Final piece there is to configure the image management for your backups. Now, Image Manager's sweet spot is around 100 machines, so for the larger sites, if you've got hundreds of machines, you might look at a second or third Image Manager instance in your environment. Let's jump into a demo and take a quick look at this. So the first thing to do is to go to the StorageCraft website. We're going to go over to the support menu, software downloads and updates. This is where we can download all of the StorageCraft software from. At the very top here, we have the ShadowProtect SPX for Windows download. So you have a 64-bit version or a 32-bit version. For those of you doing the GPO-based deployment, we've got a 64-bit and 32-bit version here as well. Now, for anyone else using Shadow Control, if we just scroll right down to the bottom here, we have the Shadow Control downloads. This consists of the appliance here. The Shadow Control appliance will include the ShadowProtect and Image Manager options for the push install, so that may be the only thing you require. Otherwise, for the smaller sites, you'll download SPX as mentioned earlier, and you may also download Image Manager from here as well. So once you've installed Shadow Control, it's all driven from a web page. So I've logged into the dashboard here. Now the first step is to go in and configure our backup scheduling. So this is split into two parts. If we jump into the menu up here, we've got the backup stores. This is where the backups are going to go. And then underneath we've got the SPX policies, which is the backup schedule. So under backup stores, we're going to add a store, and this is going to be the location of our backup. So I might call this backup server. And then the path will be the SMB path to a share on the backup server. You may need to authenticate to that, and then for the Linux endpoints, you would specify a path for those machines as well. Once you've configured the backup store, we can then go back in and configure an SPX policy. So we're going to go here and add a backup policy. I'm going to call this one critical servers. I'm then going to ask it to back up all volumes. I'm then going to select the backup store we just created, which I called backup store. Then compression, I've got standard encryption AES 256-bit, so I'll give it a password. And finally, we can go and configure a backup schedule. So StorageCraft recommends using a continuous incremental schedule. This is where ShadowProtect does a full backup and then incrementals forever. So we'll leverage Image Manager on our backup server to manage this. For the incremental schedules, we could select 7 days a week. By default, it's from 8 AM till 6 PM. If I wasn't using any other backup product, I could choose to back up 24 hours a day. By default, it will repeat every hour. We could make this as frequent as every 15 minutes. We're going to save that policy. Final step is to go across to organizations and create a group. So I want to create a group for my critical servers. So I'm going to call this critical servers. I'm then going to apply that policy we just created called critical servers. So I'm going to save that. The next step is to deploy the ShadowProtect SPX software. So again, for smaller sites, you might not be leveraging Shadow Control, it's just a manual install. Otherwise, we could leverage our GPO install or go down and leverage the Shadow Control push installer. So the push install is really easy. We can do a discovery with importing a CSV file. We can do a plugin integration into your VMware vCenter environment, or a discovery with System Center Virtual Machine Manager plugin. So I've got a CSV host list here called StorageCraft Machines. I'm going to select push install. Now, this is a bunch of machines that I've imported via a CSV file. I'm simply going to select push install ShadowProtect SPX, and I can highlight all of the machines that I want to back up. You can see that I've got some Windows and Linux machines. It's very straightforward. And select push install. So we've got Windows and Linux machine credentials. The organization is a good idea. If you've selected those critical servers as that initial push install, we just want to specify that organization. What that means is once it's installed and the machine has rebooted, it will automatically get the policy and start backing up. We've then got our licensing, whether we're using perpetual keys or using the StorageCraft MSP for our MSP providers. We could leverage socket licensing service. And finally, because I've specified an organization here that has a policy assigned to it, I don't also then need to specify a policy again. I agree, and we can start the push install process. Once ShadowProtect has been deployed, you will see under your endpoint screen a list of all of your machines, when the last backups were, the versions of the software, and information on the status of the environment. So it's very straightforward. The final step, as I mentioned at the beginning, was to install and configure Image Manager. So again, we can either manually install or do a push install. And once you log into Image Manager, it will look something like this. The very first thing you need to do is start managing the backup store. So this is on your backup server where your backup images are stored. You need to manage the server's backup folders. Now these folders here are for 3 servers. They get created automatically by the SPX policy. So I'm just going to manage the backup store. I'm going to select that directory. I'm going to define it as a backup store type, and that will automatically manage all of those backups for me. So I'm going to go here and click save. We can see the backup store has been imported in here, and it has just gone and found a bunch of my backup folders for me. So it's as simple as that. These are the basic steps to get up and running with the ShadowProtect solution. Thanks for watching this quick getting started tutorial. For more assistance, please check out our online user guides or reach out to your preferred StorageCraft partner. Otherwise, get in touch with your local StorageCraft representative.